I used to believe that if you carried enough weight quietly, someone, eventually, would notice the bruises on your shoulders. That if you filled every gap, patched every leak, fixed what others left broken, they'd call it love. Or at least respect. That belief died in our kitchen, 7:42 a.m. On a Tuesday. The light through the blinds was cold. Not winter yet, but the kind of dull gray morning that warns of it. A house not yet awake, but already grinding forward. Lily's shoes were by the door, untied, again. The laces knotted like she'd been in a rush last night. Her backpack was slouched against the wall, half-zipped. One gym shoe hung out like a tongue. Her jacket was on the banister. I'd asked her to hang it up 3 times yesterday. She never did. I stood there, watching her scramble for her water bottle. I reminded her, gently because I'd learned not to say anything too directly, that she still needed her gym clothes. She didn't thank me. She didn't even look at me. Just muttered something under her breath and rolled her eyes like I was a draft of cold air. That's when Sarah said it. From the sink, still rinsing a plate. Her voice low, even. Not cruel, worse. Casual. Don't interfere with my child's upbringing. That's my domain. 7 words. No emphasis. No fury. Just a line drawn in permanent ink. I stood still. The fridge hummed behind me. Lily zipped her bag with a sharp jerk and moved toward the door. My mouth opened, reflex, instinct, and then closed. Sarah didn't even turn. Just rinsed a second plate, wiped her hands, placed it in the drying rack like nothing had happened. Like my place in the house had always been this unclear, and now she had simply put it into words. I looked down at the table. Her coffee sat untouched. Steam still rising, barely. My own cup had gone cold 10 minutes ago. My hand was still around it, though I hadn't taken a sip. I didn't argue. I didn't ask for clarity. I didn't defend myself. There was nothing to defend. The verdict had been spoken. I was not a parent. I was not a partner. I was something else, something in between. Present, but uninvited. Necessary, but unwanted. The scaffolding around a house that no longer needed me to hold it up, even as it leaned. I stepped into the mudroom. Took my car keys, the grocery card, and the gas card. I stood there a moment longer, looking at the calendar with the handwriting that was mine. The meal plan I had written. The school events I had highlighted. The little post-it with Lily's dental appointment and her volleyball practice, both of which I had scheduled, and neither of which anyone had thanked me for. Then I left. I didn't walk out on my family. That's not how I'd describe it. I stepped out of a system where I was useful but never valued. Where I was expected to pay, to drive, to fix, but never to speak. Where my opinion was interference, and my silence was just part of the furniture. Where I could carry the load, but never the title. I met Sarah 5 years ago. She had Lily, 6 at the time, and a house that felt more like a temporary shelter than a home. Her ex had disappeared into the distance with another woman, another child, another version of himself. He made promises in court and broke them in life. I stepped in not to replace him, but to fill what he had left behind. A gap, a silence, a need. I never wanted credit. I didn't want Lily to call me dad. I just wanted to build something solid. A life that didn't sway when the wind picked up. In the beginning, Sarah praised me. She said I was her rock, that she didn't know how she'd gotten so lucky. I believed her. I wanted to. I took on the errands, the bills, the broken pipes, the forgotten permission slips. I read bedtime stories when Sarah worked late. I picked Lily up from school when the office called. I stayed up with her when she had the flu, the same way I do for a daughter of my own. But over time, something shifted. The gratitude faded. The praise turned into assumptions. My presence was no longer a gift, it was background noise. A man doing what a man should do. And the boundaries started to shift. Lily grew bolder. Her defiance sharpened. The respect eroded slowly, not with cruelty, but indifference. She began to treat me like an employee in a uniform she couldn't quite name. Polite when she needed something. Dismissive when I reminded her to do anything else. Sarah noticed, I think, but she said nothing. Or worse, she made excuses. She's just moody today. She's at that age. She didn't mean it that way. She always found a way to soften the blow. As if my hurt was too sharp, too real, too inconvenient. I told myself to be patient. That these things take time. That love, when it isn't written in blood, has to be earned. But respect, that shouldn't need to be begged for. The drive that morning was quiet. I didn't play the radio. I didn't stop for gas, even though the tank was nearly empty. I just drove, not toward work, not toward anything in particular. Just away. Away from the table where I wasn't allowed a voice. Away from the child I raised who would never see me as more than an intrusion. Away from the woman who could slice my identity apart with one sentence and then rinse a plate like she hadn't. I parked outside the park near the train tracks. Sat there with the engine off, watching the fog roll off the field. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. But something inside me, something buried and patient and obedient, cracked. Not loudly, not violently, just a small split down the middle. The kind that changes the shape of everything else around it. If you'd asked me the day before what my role was, I'd have said partner, stepfather, provider, stabilizer, the guy who shows up. But now I knew better. I wasn't a partner. I was an assistant, not a stepfather, a live-in helper, a man paid in chores and silence. And when Sarah had drawn that line in the kitchen, she wasn't asserting control. She was reminding me of what had always been true. This isn't your child. This isn't your call. This isn't your place. Maybe she thought I'd swallow it. That I'd come home later with dinner and groceries. That I'd slip back into the same rhythm. That I'd brush it off like all the other little humiliations. But I didn't, because something inside me had shifted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even hurt. I was awake. I didn't come back that night. Not out of anger. Not to make a point. I just didn't. The tank was low, so I drove to the edge of the county and parked behind an old warehouse where no one would look for me. I sat there in the car, the engine off, the world wrapped in the kind of silence that cities forget how to hold. My phone buzzed twice, once from Sarah, once from the school's automated system reminding me about Lily's upcoming parent-teacher conference. I didn't answer either. That night, I slept in the car. Seat reclined, jacket over my chest, eyes open half the time, watching the stars fade one by one. And when the morning came, I felt something different. Not anger, not pride, freedom. The kind that only comes when a man finally decides not to be needed anymore. Until that day, I was the one who made things run. I wasn't dramatic about it. I didn't expect applause. But I did the things no one thought to notice, which meant no one thought to do them either. I was the one who bought groceries before we ran out. The one who knew when the milk expired, when the fridge filter needed replacing. I checked the tires, took the garbage out without being asked, changed the smoke detector batteries, paid the water bill early because I didn't trust the autopay. I was the quiet current under the surface of a house that had no idea what kept it floating. Lily's school forms? I signed them. Her doctor's appointments? I scheduled them. The lunch she forgot on the counter? I dropped it off before work without telling anyone. I filled in every gap her father had left behind and never made it a debate. I didn't try to replace him. I just filled the space because someone had to. That morning, when I didn't come back, I knew exactly what would begin to unravel. It started with the obvious. The fridge was nearly bare. No eggs. No fruit. Milk gone sour. The car Sarah usually took to work was near empty. I'd meant to fill it the night before. She tried to use the gas card. Declined. I watched the transaction fail from my phone. She tried it twice. Then once more at a different station. Same result. Groceries. Declined. Lunch delivery for Lily. Cancelled. The laundry detergent she added to the delivery cart. Removed. She even tried her personal card, but she never noticed that her account was almost always low. I was the one who topped it off when needed, quietly, automatically. By 3 p.m., the text started. Did you take the gas card? Why is the delivery account canceled? Can you please respond? I didn't, not out of spite, but because I had been asked explicitly not to interfere. And for the first time, I was going to honor that request. By the third day, the system began to groan. Not collapse, not yet, but groan. Lily was late to school. Twice. She'd left her project at home the second morning. Sarah blamed the teacher for not giving clear instructions, but I knew better. I was the one who usually checked the backpack before they both rushed out the door. The laundry piled up. Lily's volleyball uniform hadn't been washed. She wore last week's socks and blamed Sarah for it. Sarah, in turn, texted me, not to ask for help, but to say, "This is not sustainable." I stared at the message a long time before deleting it. The next day, the school called Sarah instead of me for a change. Lily had missed a deadline, something about a permission slip, a forgotten payment for a field trip. The same trip I had circled on the calendar 2 weeks ago. That night, Sarah called me, voice tight, trying not to sound angry. "You made your point. Can we talk?" But I hadn't made a point. I wasn't playing chess. I wasn't trying to win. I had simply stopped carrying what I was no longer allowed to touch. Sarah thought it was temporary, that I'd cool off, come home, make dinner like always, fill the fridge again and fold back into the rhythm like I'd never left. She told herself it was just a bad week. That men sulk, that this was my version of pouting. But I wasn't sulking. I was watching the house I had kept upright begin to list to one side. Watching her search for backup, for another version of me she could plug in when the original decided he'd had enough. She tried calling her sister, asked her to help pick Lily up. Once, then again. By the third favor, the replies got slower, less enthusiastic. She called Lily's father, too. I know because I heard his name in a voicemail she left on speaker, not realizing I could still access the home line's cloud inbox. She asked if he could help with a few things. He didn't call back. Lily, for her part, was more annoyed than anything else. Her tone shifted from bratty to biting. She barked at Sarah more often, complained about missing things, didn't understand why dinner was late or why her favorite snacks weren't in the pantry. No one had told her that someone else had always made that happen. She thought the world just functioned that way. When Sarah finally asked me to come back, it wasn't an apology. It was a negotiation. She sent a message saying, "I never meant to hurt you. I just didn't want things to get complicated with Lily." Complicated. That was the word she chose. Not thank you. Not I'm sorry. Not you've done more than anyone ever has for this child. Just complicated. Like I was the one bringing chaos. Not the one who had been silently holding it back all along. That was the final straw. Not the words she spoke that morning. Not the gas cards or the groceries. Not even Lily's rejection. It was the realization that even when the cracks showed, even when the gaps widened, Sarah still couldn't see me. Not really. She didn't see the man who had made her life easier. She only saw the man who, once he stepped away, made it harder. That's when I stopped answering. I didn't leave the house because of anger. I stayed away because clarity had finally come. For 5 years I had operated like a ghost in my own home, visible only through function. I wasn't remembered, I was relied on. I wasn't included, I was assumed. And when I voiced concern, even gently, I was told to step back. Stay in my lane. Let the real parent handle it. So that's what I did. I let her handle it. The money, the schedules, the discipline, the tiny details that keep a household from tipping over. I handed it back to her, not with bitterness, but with truth. You can't ask a man to pour from his cup every day and then slap his hand when he tries to ask how the water's being used. You can't expect contribution without voice, obligation without identity, sacrifice without space. 3 days turned into 5. By then, the silence was heavier. Lily called me once. I didn't answer. Her voicemail was short, irritated. "Mom says you're being childish. Whatever. Just come back." I deleted it, because in her voice I heard Sarah. I heard the house, the system, the roles I had been assigned without consent. No one asked why I left, only why I wouldn't return. On the 7th day, I watched the house from across the street. Engine off. Window cracked. Rain collecting in beads on the windshield. The porch light was still out. I used to change the bulb when it flickered. The grass hadn't been cut. It was creeping up the path now, curling over the edge of the concrete like fingers. Something inside me wanted to walk up and fix it. Not for them, for the illusion. For the order I had spent 5 years manufacturing. But I didn't, because it was no longer mine to maintain. That day, Lily missed school. I know because the voicemail hit both phones, hers and Sarah's, and when neither answered, the school called the emergency contact. Still me. I didn't pick up. 10 minutes later, a text from Sarah. Why is the school still calling you? I thought you removed yourself. I hadn't. Not yet. Some part of me had hesitated. Maybe out of guilt. Maybe curiosity. Maybe I wanted to know how long it would take before they noticed what I'd done. Now I had my answer. They noticed, but they didn't understand. They saw the consequences, but they never traced the cause. Because in their world, things just happened. Bills paid themselves. Appointments booked themselves. Food restocked. Laundry cleaned. Floors swept. All by unseen hands. Now the spell was broken. And the house was remembering what neglect felt like. On day 9, Sarah sent Lily to stay with her mother. She needed space, she said. Time to get things back on track. I read the message twice before deleting it. Her mother never liked me. Said I was too careful. That I acted like everything was a job. She wasn't wrong. It had been a job. I just didn't realize I'd never been hired. By the end of the second week, the system began to fail outright. Not in dramatic explosions. Just in the slow collapse of basic function. The trash piled up. Lily's doctor called about an overdue vaccination. The school sent home a warning about absences. One of the pipes under the kitchen sink burst. Just a leak, but left long enough, it soaked the cabinet and began to rot the wood. Sarah texted again. Can we please talk? I didn't reply, because she didn't want to talk. She wanted to negotiate with a man she still believed would come back when the mess got bad enough. She still thought this was a tantrum. Still believed that what I wanted was attention. But she didn't understand what had broken, because it wasn't my temper. It was the contract. The unspoken one I had written in silence for 5 years. Every grocery trip, every 5 a.m. commute, every missed night out, every dollar slipped into accounts she never noticed were empty. That contract had terms, even if I never said them, and she had broken them. On day 14, Lily came home. I don't know why. Maybe her grandmother was tired. Maybe Sarah was desperate. Either way, the text changed tone. Lily wants to see you. She says she misses you. Can we have dinner? I almost laughed. Missed me? No. She missed what I gave her. The structure. The invisible scaffolding she'd spent years pretending didn't exist. But missing comfort isn't the same as missing the man who provided it. She missed being carried. Not the one who carried her. That weekend, Sarah tried to handle the yard. I saw her from the car again. She borrowed a mower from the neighbor. Got halfway through before it stalled. I waited, curious, as she fiddled with the cord. Gave up. Kicked it. Walked back inside, leaving the job half done. For years, I had done the lawn every Saturday. Rain or shine. I liked it. It made the house look right. Controlled. Cared for. Now the lines were jagged. The grass uneven. Like a metaphor too obvious to ignore. This is what happens when care is reactive, not constant. This is what happens when love is conditional on silence. Then came the letter. Tuition balance. I had paid the first installment quietly months ago. Set it up on autopay. Sarah had never noticed. Now it had bounced. Not declined, returned. I canceled the funding source 3 days earlier. The email went to her inbox first. She forwarded it to me with one sentence. Did you do this? No greeting. No pretense. Just blame. Not shock. Not shame. Blame. Like I had sabotaged something. Like the bill wasn't a natural consequence of a role revoked. I didn't reply, because there was nothing left to explain. By day 20, the house began to call to me again. Not out of guilt, out of habit. I drove past twice, slowed down near the corner, watched Lily walk in after school, dragging her backpack. She didn't look for me. She hadn't called since that one voicemail. Not because she was proud. but because she believed I'd come back when it mattered. That's the problem with children raised in houses where the men never really leave. They think loyalty means returning after disrespect. But I wasn't a boomerang. I was a bridge they'd burned while still standing on it. Sarah sent one final message before I blocked her number. It read, "I get that you're angry, but Lily's still a child. She doesn't understand. You're the adult. Be the bigger person." I read that line twice, then again. Be the bigger person. I had been. For 5 years. I had bitten my tongue, lowered my voice, paid the bills, absorbed the insults, smiled through the exclusions, waited for the thaw that never came. I had carried the burden without asking who else was helping. I had been the bigger person so long, I forgot what it felt like to be a man. Her message didn't break me, confirmed me. Sarah hadn't changed. She hadn't learned. She still believed I owed them grace after they spat in my face. She still believed my silence was a resource, not a warning. The bills arrived one by one. Electric, internet, school payments, all sent to her now, because I had removed my name. One after another, I extricated myself from the framework I had once built. Bank accounts, joint subscriptions, auto-renewals, gone. I deleted the calendar that tracked Lily's school days. I cleared the reminders. I shredded the backup insurance card she carried in her wallet. I untangled my presence from their lives, thread by thread, until nothing remained but absence. Not vindictive, just clean. A man disappearing from a life where he was never truly seen. I never moved back in. Sarah stopped asking after the 3rd week. She didn't say it in words. I could see it in the texts that stopped coming, in the silence that stretched across days, then weeks. She had made her decision, and so had I. But choices don't always announce themselves. Sometimes they just settle, like dust after a building collapses. Quiet, inevitable, permanent. I rented a small place across town. 2 rooms. No yard. No pictures on the walls. I didn't need much. Just a bed, a sink, and the absence of expectations. There was peace in that. A brutal kind. The kind you don't enjoy, but you respect. Lily didn't reach out again. Not a call. Not a message. Maybe Sarah told her not to. Maybe pride did. Maybe she just didn't see the point. Either way, the result was the same: distance. And that silence, more than anything, confirmed the truth I had been circling for years. I had never really been a father in that house. I had been a function. And when the function stopped, so did their need for me. I saw Sarah once more months later. Not planned. Grocery store. Early evening. Fluorescent lights. That too familiar aisle where we used to argue over cereal brands. She looked thinner. Tired. We stood there a moment. She hesitated before speaking. "Lily's doing better now," she said. I nodded. "That's good. She's had to grow up a little." I didn't respond. She searched my face. Maybe for bitterness. Maybe for softness. Maybe for the version of me she remembered, the man who would fold, compromise, make things easier for everyone else. He wasn't there anymore. After a long pause, she said, "You could have stayed. We would have figured it out." That's when I understood she still didn't get it. I didn't leave because I couldn't endure discomfort. I left because I finally recognized disrespect. You don't fix that with negotiation. You don't reason your way into dignity. You reclaim it or you lose it forever. Lily's father never stepped up. Of course not. They always imagine he might. That myth of redemption they hold onto like a lottery ticket. But men like him don't come back. They drift. They hover at the edges. Just close enough to create hope. Just distant enough to avoid cost. And Lily, well, I wonder sometimes what she'll remember. Will she remember the lunches packed, the rides to school, the math homework spread across the table while Sarah worked late? Will she remember the quiet hours, the ones no one thanks you for, spent fixing, funding, holding it all together? Or will she remember just the final act? The absence? The door that didn't open again? Children remember what suits them, what protects their image of the people they choose to love. And I was never chosen. I was just there. People say love is unconditional. But respect isn't. And when one dies, the other doesn't survive long. You can give. You can sacrifice. You can pour yourself out day after day, hoping the shape you form will one day be recognized as father. But if they don't see it, if they never see it, you become invisible in your own home. A ghost with a paycheck. A shadow with a gas card. I still have her birthday marked on my calendar. I don't know why. Habit, maybe. Or some last pathetic thread of attachment I haven't cut. Each year it rolls around like a bruise. Tender, but dull. I never send anything. But I remember. That's the sickest part of it all. The remembering. The part they don't see. The part where your mind replays the good moments, even after your heart knows better. There were good moments. Lily hugging me when she lost her first tooth. Falling asleep on my chest during thunderstorms. Her asking me to watch her dance routine over and over until the music looped in my head for days. Tiny things. Unremarkable. But they anchored me. And they're gone now. Not because I let go, but because she never held them. People always ask, what happened? They mean well, I think. Friends. Co-workers. They ask it softly, like prying open a wound gently makes it hurt less. I don't tell them much. Things just didn't work out. That's the polite version. The digestible version. I don't say, she told me not to interfere with my child's upbringing. I don't say, I was the one who held it all together, and no one noticed until I stopped. I don't say, I walked away not because I was weak, but because I was finally strong enough to stop begging for worth. People don't want that truth. They want stories with healing, with resolution. But real life isn't a redemption arc. Sometimes it's just a lesson carved out of loss. I see them sometimes. Online. Lily posts photos. College now. A different haircut. A caption about the people who always had her back. Sarah standing beside her. Smiling. There's no trace of me. No shadow. No name. No hint. Like I was never there at all. Like the man who fed her, clothed her, stayed when her real father vanished. Never existed. And maybe he didn't. Maybe I was just a placeholder. The man who made it easier until she didn't need him anymore. Until my absence could be rewritten as irrelevance. Some nights, I wonder what would have happened if I had stayed. If I had swallowed my pride one more time. If I had walked back through that door, apologized for having needs, and resumed my post like nothing had cracked. Maybe Lily would have graduated with fewer hiccups. Maybe Sarah wouldn't have had to scramble. Maybe life would have looked smoother from the outside. But inside, I would have rotted, piece by piece. Because when you're not seen, you disappear from yourself first. You become efficient, silent, necessary, but never loved, never respected. So here's the truth I carry now. Love without respect is slavery. And I was a slave long enough. I gave them everything a father gives, presence, protection, provision. And in return, I was tolerated. Barely. Until the moment I stepped out of line. Until I crossed a boundary I hadn't been told existed. The one where only blood gets a voice. I learned the hard way that family is not built on sacrifice alone. It's built on recognition. And when that's missing, the whole thing is a lie dressed up as loyalty. I live quietly now. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. The apartment's small, but it's mine. Every bill I pay is for me. Every decision I make echoes back without distortion. No one tells me to step aside. No one reminds me that I'm not really part of anything. And yes, it's lonely, but it's honest. And after years of invisible labor, honesty is a relief. Even the painful kind. So now I ask you, whoever finds this, whoever reads it and thinks, that could have been me. Was I wrong? Was I cruel to step back when asked? Was I heartless to withdraw what I was never thanked for? Or was this the only way left to protect what little of myself I hadn't given away? People say, you should have stayed for the child. But what if the child never saw you? What if your presence was just the air they breathed, never noticed until it vanished? Would you have endured it? Would you have stayed? Would you have paid the price every day for a title they refused to give you? Tell me, because I've asked myself 1,000 times. and I still don't know the answer.